Where would you stop? Which hadith? Finish 28. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على نبينا الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Let's get straight into it inshallah. الحديث التاسع والعشرون حديث number 29 عن معاذ بن جبل رضي الله تعالى عنه قال قلت يا رسول الله أخبرني بعمل يدخلني الجنة ويباعدني عن النار. So Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu, he says that I said, O Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, tell me about an action which through it or by this action I will enter into Jannah, or it will enter me into Jannah and it will keep me away from the hellfire. قال, so the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam replied, لَقَدْ سَأَلْتَ عَنْ عَظِيمٍ, that you have asked about a great matter. وَإِنَّهُ لَيَسِرٌ عَلَى مَنْ يَسَّرَهُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى عَلَيْهِ, and it is an easy thing upon whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it easy. So this thing, entering into Jannah and going away from the hellfire, this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can facilitate ease in for a slave. Then the Prophet ﷺ, he gives his advice. He says, تَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُ بِهِ شَيْئًا, that you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you don't associate any partners with him. وَتُقِيمُ الصَّلَاةِ, and you establish the salah. وَتُؤْتِ الزَّكَاةِ, and you give the zakat. وَتَصُومُ رَمَضَانَ وَتَحُجَّ الْبَيْتِ, وَتَحُجُّ الْبَيْتِ, so you fast Ramadan and you perform the Hajj. ثُمَّ قال أَلَا أَدُلُّكَ عَلَى أَبْوَابِ الْخَيْرِ, so this is now a separate thing. Khair, meaning the first part was what? In response to the man's or Mu'adh ibn Jabal's advice, seeking of advice. This second part is additional. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam then said, أَلَا أَدُلُّكَ عَلَى أَبْوَابِ الْخَيْرِ, that should I not direct you to the doors of righteousness, the doors of goodness. As-sawmu junnah. The Prophet ﷺ then says, As-sawmu junnah, that fasting is a shield. Was-sadaqatu tudfi'u al-khati'ata kama yudfi'u al-ma'u an-nar. And sadaqah, charity, it extinguishes sins the way water extinguishes fire. وَصَلَاةُ الرَّجُلِ فِي جَوْفِ اللَّيْلِ, and the salah of a man in the middle of the night. ثُمَّ تَلَى, then the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he recited the ayat of Surah Sajda verse 16-17 that talk about تَتَجَافَ جُنُوبُهُمْ عَنِ الْمَضَاجِعِ حَتَّى يَعْلَمُونَ, that the believers, regarding the believers, those who leave or they forsake their beds for the sake of Qiyam al-Layl, for the sake of standing in the night for Salah. ثُمَّ قال, then the Messenger of Allah said, أَلَا أُخْبِرُكَ بِرَأْسِ الْأَمْرِ, should I not inform you about the head of the matter, the main part of the وَعَمُودِهِ وَذِرَّةِ سَنَامِهِ, and the pillar of the matter, the main foundation of the matter, وَذِرَّةُ سَنَامِهِ, and the peak of the matter, the highest point of the matter. Then he said, Al-Jihad. And there are other narrations, riwayat we'll mention inshallah, but this is the riwayah we have in 40 hadith. ثُمَّ قال أَلَا أُخْبِرُكَ بِمَلَاكِ ذَلِكَ كُلِّهِ, should I not tell you about the foundation of all of that? قُلْتُ بَلَى يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, he said, Mu'adh radiallahu anhu replies, of course, O Messenger of Allah, please tell me. فَأَخَذَ بِلِسَانِهِ, so the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he grabbed his tongue, as in his own tongue. وَقَالَ كُفَّ عَلَيْكَ هَذَا, he said, meaning that be mindful of this. Be mindful of this. قُلْتُ يَا نَبِيَ اللَّهِ, I said, O Prophet of Allah, وَإِنَّمَا لَمُؤَاخَذُونَ بِمَا نَتَكَلَّمُ بِهِ, are we going to be held accountable for that which we say with this tongue? فَقَالَ ثَكِلَتْكَ أُمُّكَ, this is a phrase in Arabic, ثَكِلَتْكَ أُمُّكَ, that may your mother be bereaved of you. What does that mean? That may your mother lose you, may you perish. So there is a saying in Arabic, but it sounds harsh, but it's not meant to be harsh. It can be harsh, but if you say in someone that you have affection for, and someone you love, then it's just a saying. It's not meant literally. وَهَلْ يَكُبُّ النَّاسَ فِي النَّارِ, and what is the point of the saying? It indicates the severity of what you're talking about, is to grab your attention. That when you say, may your mother be bereaved of you, everyone looked up right? Like, what does that mean? How can you say that? Why would you say that to a Sahabi, right? رضي الله عنه. So it grabs your attention. وهل يكب الناس في النار على وجوههم أو قال على مناخرهم. That is there anything that throws and drags the people into the fire upon their faces or upon their noses, إلا حصائد ألسنتهم, except for the harvest of their tongue, meaning that which their tongue produces. And this hadith is in Sunan al-Tirmidhi. Okay? So it's a bit of a long hadith, so there's a lot to unpack. We'll take it step by step, inshallah. So the Prophet ﷺ was his first piece of advice. First he mentions, or before he gives the advice, he talks about the gravity of what Mu'adh ibn Jabal is asking. He's telling him that you've asked about a great matter, because what is greater than entering into Jannah and avoiding the hellfire? This is the whole purpose of our creation. This is why we're here. This is why we have. This is why we wake up. This is our purpose, right? This is what separates the believer from the disbeliever. Because what does the disbeliever do? We see the kuffar. We live in the land of kuffar, right? We see the kuffar all around us. What is their life? It is purposeless, completely purposeless. Subhanallah. You look at their lives. Monday to Friday, they work and they work and they work. I was speaking to some brothers recently about housing and rent, and subhanAllah, London's too expensive. Then we were talking about how some of the kuffar, some of the colleagues they have at work, they commute 2 hours to the office by train, by car, and then they go home. It takes them another 2 hours to get home. That's 4 hours of their day. Then when they get home, they log back in and they keep working. Monday to Friday, they work and they work and they work. Why? So that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they can just party and they can have fun. They work for the weekend. This is their life. It's just a cycle of this. Right? Monday to Friday, work. Saturday, Sunday, or Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, you relax and you enjoy yourself. Once or twice a year, you go on a holiday. But what's unfortunate is what I just described. It also describes many Muslims today as well. Before growing up, this was a description exclusive to the kuffar. But now, maybe, I'm not saying that it's changed now. Maybe it's just because I was younger, I didn't see the believers doing this, obviously. But now that I'm older, you see people, they're working 9 to 5, and they just look forward to Friday, Saturday, go eat with the boys, get some tea, coffee, chill all night, play some pool, go on holiday with the wife and the kids, 2, 3, 4 times a year. This is your life. Here and there I'll pray salah, here and there I'll come for Jum'ah. If I have time, my manager's not going to tell me off. Or even some believers, some Muslims, they pray 5 times a day. But their life, other than salah, is just like the life of the kafir. Now, this is obviously better than the one who doesn't pray, of course. But as believers, as Muslims, it's not sufficient just for us to think that we're praying salah and that's it. That's sufficient for me as a believer. That's sufficient for me. Yes, salah is the foundation. It's the core of your thing. But from that, it has to be salah is a springboard. Salah is the foundation. After that, you grow from that. It shouldn't be the aim. The aim is not for you to pray 5 daily salawat. That's the starting place. Khair. Now some of you may be thinking, we took the hadith a couple of weeks ago, about the man who came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, if I pray the salah and give zakat and I do the 5 pillars, will I go to Jannah? The Prophet ﷺ said yes. But what do we say about that hadith? Is that the aim, to be like that? No. But if you do that, yes, you will go to Jannah, inshallah, as long as you avoid the haram. But as Muslims, as believers, generally we should have higher ambitions. Right? And when it comes to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, naturally, and even the Prophet ﷺ, when he's speaking to that man, and he said, yes, legally, yes, that is correct. You will go to Jannah if you do the 5 pillars and you avoid haram. Right? But naturally, also look at the wisdom of the Prophet ﷺ. Do you think a man who prays 5 times a day, goes for Hajj, or he saves for many years to go for Hajj, right? He fasts Ramadan every month, every year. He pays his zakat every year. Do you think that he will stop at that after 10, 50? Do you think anyone will do that for 50 years and just do that? No. People, naturally, you'll build on that. Right? So the advice to a person who maybe doesn't do those things is, Akhi, look, Islam is easy. You tell them Islam is easy. Just pray 5 salah daily, fast your Ramadan. You tell them it's easy. Once they got the foot in the door, once they're doing that, then you tell them, Akhi, come to durus. You know, subhanAllah, try to pray Qiyamul Layl, try to pray Salatul Duha. You don't tell somebody who is missing Fajr, why don't you pray Duha? It's Duha time right now, pray Duha. He doesn't even pray Fajr. Right? The guy who comes just for Jum'ah. You know, this is why it's so important to every masjid to have a good khatib, right? With relevant khutbahs. Because sometimes you come to the masjid, who comes to the masjid on Jum'ah? The general masses. People who maybe never come to the masjid. 60, 70, 80% of the musallis in Jum'ah are probably people who never come to the masjid except for Friday. You have an opportunity here to speak to them on their level, to speak to them about what is relevant to them. Right? Not talking about Qiyam al-Layl in a khutbah. Ya akhi, subhanallah, you're probably the only one, the khatib's the only one who prays Qiyam al-Layl. Right? When you're speaking about Qiyam al-Layl, yes, it's a part of the deen, but you have to know your audience. You got a room, for example, you got a room, let's say the dars are full of roadmen, yeah? Brothers who are fresh off the road, just started practicing. You're not gonna tell them about, you know, the intricacy and, you know, in this is what Sahih means in a hadith, and a Sahih hadith, there are 5 conditions, and Imam Bukhari had different. They're gonna be like, what is this guy talking about? I thought Islam was about praying Salah. What's this guy talking about Bukhari? What's a Bukhari? Right? Not who, what's a Bukhari? He's going to be thinking. So you need to know your audience. So the Prophet in each individual case, do you look at his wisdom, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Mu'adh, he asked, what will get me into Jannah and keep me away from the hellfire? Why is his answer different, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Why does he add more? He mentions the 5 pillars, right? In the beginning of the hadith. Similar to the hadith of the other man, the Bedouin who came. However, why is it with Mu'adh he adds more? He says, as-sawmu junnah, and he says, why? Because he knows Mu'adh is on a higher level than the Bedouin. Mu'adh is not your average Sahabi. He's not your average Muslim. So he's going to encourage him with more. He's going to tell him, be careful about your tongue. He's going to tell him all these things. Right? So the Prophet, he knew his audience. He gave advice based on who and what, you know, the time, the place, and the people that were around him. So the Prophet, he mentions the fundamentals first. تَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُ بِهِ شَيْئًا. That you worship Allah and you don't associate partners with Him. Again, Mu'adh knows this. But فَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ ذِكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. That remind, because reminders benefit the believers. There's no harm in repeating the foundations. There's no harm in repeating these things. Then it becomes, rather than just being a thought, it becomes an idea, it becomes a mentality. Right? The Prophet ﷺ, he just taught them once the 5 pillars in 23 years of prophethood. Do you think they'll understand the importance of it? La. He repeated it. In the Quran, why is there repetition? Why are things repeated? How many times is Aqim as-Salah mentioned? Why? Because it's important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us a mentality here, a mindset. Aqim as-Salah, live your life around the Salah. Wa'atu zakat. The zakat, purify your wealth. Because your wealth affects everything in your life. Your wealth is that from which you eat and you live and you rent and you wear clothes from your wealth. And you feed your family from your wealth. So it affects all of your life. Then he says, obviously the 5 pillars he mentions. Then he says, أَلَا أَدُلُّكَ عَلَىٰ أَبْوَابِ الْخَيْرِ. Should I not tell you about the doors to righteousness, the doors to goodness? Okay. And here the Prophet ﷺ mentions what? He mentions voluntary acts. Okay. Because here he says, as-sawmu junnah. This Sawm is not the same Sawm as mentioned in the beginning of the hadith. It says Sawm Ramadan. Sawm Ramadan is one thing. That's what? What's the ruling of fasting Ramadan? What's the ruling of it? Wajib. It's for obligatory. It's fard. This next section of the hadith where he says, أَلَا أَدُلُّكَ عَلَىٰ أَبْوَابِ الْخَيْرِ. Shall I not tell you about the doors of goodness? Here the Prophet ﷺ is talking about voluntary actions. So he mentions Sawm again, but he's talking about voluntary Sawm. He's talking about voluntary fasting. الصوم جنة. إيش الجنة؟ يعني what is a جنة? What is الجنة? اسم لما يتقى ويستتر به كالدرع للصدر والخوذة للرأس. الجنة is like armor. الجنة we can say is a shield or armor. The Prophet ﷺ is saying that fasting, voluntary fasting, is like armor. Meaning what? What does armor do? It protects you. So what does Sawm protect you from? Haram, desires. It protects you from falling into sin. It protects you from also the hellfire. right? And there are so many narrations about the virtue of Sawm. So many narrations about the virtue of Sawm, virtue of fasting. And we obviously mentioned some of these virtues in previous ahadith. Right? The second thing the Prophet mentions here is sadaqah. وَالصَّدَقَةُ تُطْفِئُ الْخَطِيئَةَ كَمَا يُطْفِئُ الْمَاءُ النَّارِ. Sadaqah, charity, voluntary charity. So this is not the zakat. This is sadaqah. What's the difference between zakat and sadaqah? No. No. So zakat is wajib, sadaqah is voluntary. Zakat is due once a year. Sadaqah can be given at any time of the year. Right? Zakat is due on a specific amount, 2.5% of your wealth. So sadaqah can be any amount. Right? So again, this is talking about voluntary charity. The Prophet ﷺ is talking about voluntary charity, that it extinguishes sins the way water extinguishes fire. Right? So you want your sins to be forgiven? Give sadaqah. Give sadaqah. Right? And there's a narration, if I'm not saying in Sunan Tirmidhi, some of the ulama have said is weak, but inshallah, this is something we can take benefit from, is that there's a hadith that mentions, along the meanings of that the Prophet ﷺ said, or is reported to have said, that what's the hadith? Something along the lines of seek cure through sadaqah. Seek shifa through sadaqah. So if someone's ill, someone's sick, give sadaqah inshallah. And this is, with the intention of, this is a tawassul. What is a tawassul? A tawassul is to seek something through something. Khair. A tawassul, there is haram tawassul and there is halal tawassul. What is haram tawassul? To seek, for example, making dua. Oh Messenger of Allah, grant me this. And they say, I'm not making dua to the Prophet ﷺ, but the Prophet ﷺ is more beloved to Allah. So I'm asking the Prophet ﷺ to ask Allah on my behalf. Right? This is not permissible. This is completely not permissible. Right? People, they go to the graves and they make dua to the grave. And when you ask them, why are you worshipping the grave? They say, no, I'm not worshipping the grave. It's just this person was a saint. He was a wali of Allah. He was a righteous person. If he asks Allah, then it will be most likely to get accepted. So I ask him to ask Allah on my behalf. Right? There's obviously completely not permissible. Right? And now there is a different type of tawassul. What is the halal tawassul? That you, for example, Ashab al-Kahf. Right? Not the in Surah al-Kahf, but the hadith of the 3 men stuck in the cave. Right? What did they do? To get the boulder that fell in front of the cave, on the opening of the cave, to get it removed, they said to what? To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they gave 3 examples, or each one gave an example of a righteous deed they did. And they said, oh Allah, if this was sincere for you, then please get me out of this situation. This is permissible. You can give sadaqah. Let's say you're in a calamity. You give sadaqah and you say, Allah, I gave sadaqah. Please alleviate this calamity from me. Pray 2 rakah, Allah, pray 2 rakah. Alleviate. You see, so through your good deeds, you can make dua, inshallah, for that. Bi'idhnillah. And the third thing the Prophet mentioned in this part of the hadith is وَصَلَاةُ الرَّجُلِ فِي جَوْفِ اللَّيْلِ. That the doors of goodness and the doors of righteousness are found where? In the salah of a man in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night. So this is referring to what? This is referring to Qiyamul Layl. This is referring to Tahajjud. And we find one of the narrations when the Prophet first moved to Medina, when he made the hijrah, was one of the first things he said. Afshu as-salam wa ati'u at-ta'am wa sallu bil-layli wan-nasu niyam. He said, spread the salam wa ati'u at-ta'am, and feed people. And this is obviously very vague. This is very general. Feed people how? Feed the poor. You have walima, feed the people. You have a baby, aqiqah, feed the people. You invite people to your home, feed the people. This is a good thing to do, inshallah. Someone's fasting, you feed them, right? And then وَصَلُّوا بِاللَّيْلِ وَالنَّاسُ نِيَامٌ, right? And pray at night while the people are sleeping. Right? So this is tahajjud, this is Qiyamul Layl. What is extra virtuous about Qiyamul Layl is that few people pray it. So it shows that the person who prays it, he is diligent in his worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And not only that, it's a difficult time. Middle of the night, this is when people, after a long day at work, you want to sleep, you want to rest. Right? You've got another long day ahead of you. You want to get rest. So most people, they don't do this. So this is why it's a special time. It's a special time and a special act of worship. Okay? So in the hadith, it mentions Salatul Rajuli fi Jawfil Layl, that the salah of a man in the middle of the night. Why does it not mention woman? Does it mean that women shouldn't pray Qiyamul Layl? No, it's generic. So this is taghliban, that this is just generally, when you're speaking generally, usually masculine is used. Okay? So a woman, same thing, if she prays middle of the night, this is the same reward for her, inshallah. Okay? And this is a form of equality that Islam establishes. What is that? Do you believe men and women are equal in all senses? No. Okay? But Islam says men and women are equal in what? In ibadah, in taqwa, in the way they will be judged Yawm al-Qiyamah. That the actions, the salah of a woman and the salah of a man, there is no superiority over the one over the other. Except in what? Except in khushu' and taqwa and obviously ittiba' sunnah, following of the sunnah. Then the Prophet ﷺ mentions ألا أخبرك برأس الأمر وعموده وذروة سنامه الجهاد. So there's another, like we mentioned, there are other riwayat that mentions, for example, in Jami' Tirmidhi as well, قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم رأس الأمر الإسلام, that the head of the matter is al-Islam. What does that mean? That the head of the matter, what is the head? The head is the main part of the body. Right? Is where the thinking comes from, is where the honor is, the face. The Prophet ﷺ said what? That do not strike on the face. Right? Why? Because of the honor. So the head of the matter is al-Islam, general. The whole deen, that is the main kind of focus of our lives. وَعَمُودُهُ الصَّلَاةِ, and the pillar that keeps that head up, is what? The salah. Right? And this is why we mentioned previously in a previous lesson that some of the ulama, right, it's a minority opinion, but some of the ulama even said the one who leaves the salah is what? Is a kafir. Right? So it's not that this is the majority opinion is not this, but the fact that this is a discussion, it should scare us. And there are many narrations that on the apparent they seem to indicate this. Okay? But when you look at the meaning and the context, we see that perhaps that's not the case. وَذِرْوَةُ سَنَامِهِ الْجِهَادُ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. In the other riwayah mentions that the peak of the matter. Right? So we've got the head, we've got the pillar, now we've got the peak. What does that mean? The head is the main thing. The pillar is what keeps you going. It keeps you straight, right? And then the peak is the highest thing. Right? The best thing of all is what? Al-jihadu fi sabilillah. Right? This is why we were saying in a previous lesson as well, regarding jihad, we need to gain control of the narrative. We need to what's the word? Redirect the narrative. What is jihad? It's mentioned in the deen. It's mentioned in the Quran many times. Mentioned in many hadith. Right? Subhanallah, 7/7, the anniversary was last week. Right? This is not jihad. Killing innocent people. Right? So we need to make this clear. This is why this has been given a bad name. It's got a bad reputation. Because you have some extremists who go and they do these things. Right? But what is jihad? The jihad is what? Is defending the Muslims, defending the honor of the people. Right? This is not something to hide away from. This is common sense. This is common sense. Every nation has, in international law, every people, they have a right to defend themselves, right? So in Islam, this is what we call it. This is what we call it, right? Or one part of it. Then the Prophet ﷺ mentions, أَلَا أُخْبِرُكَ بِمَلَاكِهِ ذَلِكَ كُلِّهِ. Should I not tell you about the foundation of all of that? ثُمَّ فَقَالَ, then he said, كُفَّ عَلَيْكَ هَذَا, that restrain this, right? Withhold this, i.e. the tongue. So أَلَا أُخْبِرُكَ بِمِلَاكِ ذَلِكَ كُلِّهِ, not malak, milak, right? The Prophet ﷺ here is emphasizing what? The importance of refraining from speaking ill or misusing the tongue. Right? And then he mentions in the end of the hadith, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the tongue is the thing that will drag most people, be the cause for people to be dragged by their faces into the hellfire. Right? Because of what the tongue produced, meaning of harm, of cutting off ties, of ill speech, of backbiting, slander. This is why something, subhanAllah, it's very important that we, as people now, we try to speak less. There's something that myself especially, we fall very short in. We speak too much. The more you speak, the more chances of you falling into sin. Right? And this includes, brothers, by the way, this includes tweeting and Facebook and stuff like this. Yeah, people think, hadith mentions tongue. Khalas, I'll just tweet something. I'll tweet whatever. SubhanAllah, Twitter is a cesspit of just filth and scum. Yeah, SubhanAllah. It's where everybody's got an opinion. Everybody and their grandmother has an opinion. SubhanAllah, everybody just says whatever is on their mind. Whatever they want to say, they just say it. Whether it's regarding the deen, politics, whatever it may be. It's very important, brothers, no matter where we are, whether it's physically in person or online, we be careful with what we say, especially with matters of the deen. That we don't speak without knowledge. It's very easy nowadays to speak without knowledge. You go to YouTube videos, you watch or read the comment section. Everyone's got an opinion. You go to YouTube videos of, the biggest ulama of the world giving a fatwa, talking about the ruling of something. And you go to a comment section, you see people nobody knows, probably never studied a day in his life. And he's going again, this alim is jahil and this is the ruling, and what about this hadith and the ayah says that. Yeah, if you watch the video, the shaykh, he gives a context to the hadith, he gives a context to the ayah. Okay? It's very important we keep silent. Even subhanAllah, recently obviously, or sometimes someone may pass away and then people are very quick to insult and be derogatory towards them. Right? They say, no, we're trying to expose their sins, or we're trying to expose the harm of this individual. There's one thing exposing the harm, but when you're in your group chats amongst your brothers and you all already know the harm of this individual, then there's no need for you to speak about this person. Now you're in a dars, or you're amongst brothers who are newly practicing and they're inclining towards this individual who's passed away. Plus, you highlight to them, no, akhi, this person is a deviant, this person was misguided in these aspects. And you guide them to the truth, inshallah. Right? It's very, very important, subhanAllah. Nowadays especially, it's very quick, people always slandering the ulama, slandering, people who are famous. Be very careful. Just because you don't agree with something someone does, or even if someone is complete jahil, right? He's on TikTok, he's on YouTube, and he's giving rulings, and he's just some kid. SubhanAllah, one brother sent me a video once. He was on Instagram or something. There's one brother, subhanAllah, he's, got a bit of fluff on his chin. He's got the Saudi scarf on. He looks like he's 12 years old. Yeah? SubhanAllah, and he's like, ask me a question, and people asking him, and he's giving rulings, and he's like, Shaykh ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen said this, and khalas, mashallah, at least he's saying Shaykh al-Uthaymeen said this, and he's not giving rulings himself. But what's the need for the scarf? And yeah, subhanAllah, ittaqillah. Why are you answering questions? Here's the thing, people, they start off with good intentions. I'm going to spread khair. I'm just going to spread this hadith. I'm going to make a nice post, and I'm going to set up a YouTube channel. I'm going to set up an Instagram page. Then the followers start coming. With the followers, the ego grows. And shaitan starts telling you, Ya akhi, you're a sheikh, mashallah. Yeah? So this is very important, that we refrain from misusing our tongues, even though it may seem like we're doing some khair. So be careful. Shaitan will beautify sin for you sometimes, or he'll beautify mistakes for you. So this hadith is not just talking about people who backbite and slander and curse. It's also talking about people who speak without knowledge. Right? Be careful when you speak. And this is from one of the biggest of sins, that you speak against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or about Allah without knowledge. You speak about the deen without knowledge. That's why some of the ulama, they even mention what? That the person who is asked a question and he doesn't know the answer, but he gives an answer, even if he's correct, he's still sinful. Right? Let's say someone says to you, Akhi, what's the ruling on crypto? And you don't know the answer, but you say, Akhi, it's halal. And for example, let's say it's halal. I'm not saying it is or not, Allahu Alam, I don't know. But even if he's correct, he's still sinful. Why? Because he spoke without knowledge. He spoke without knowledge. You didn't know that. You had no fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you gave the answer. You didn't once stop and think and reflect. What will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say to you? Yawm al-Qiyamah. So this is something we need to be very careful of. And another thing, final point on this, inshallah, because we can speak long and long about this. Right? Speak all night about this. Is controlling our tongues, and this is, subhanAllah, advice to myself first and foremost, is our tongues, controlling our tongues with our families. Because these are the people who see the true filth of our tongues. Parents, from their children. Very quickly we see children get angry with their parents. Right? Very quickly we have sharp tongues with our parents. Wives with husbands, husbands with wives. Sometimes brothers, they think that, subhanAllah, I'm qawwam, I'm the man of the relationship, I'm the man of the marriage. I wear the pants, I can speak to my wife however I like. Yeah. Speak to her with respect. There's a saying, the Arabs, they have a saying, kama tudinu tudan. And in English we have, what goes around comes around. Okay? And this isn't obviously an Islamic principle, but you see in life, this is what happens. You mistreat your wife. When you have a daughter, don't be surprised when her husband mistreats her. Don't be surprised. Okay. So we'll go to the next hadith, inshallah, الحديث الثالثون. عن أبي ثعلب الخشني جرثم بن ناشر رضي الله تعالى عنه عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الله عز وجل فرض فرائض فلا تضيعوها وحد حدودا فلا تعتدوها وحرم أشياء فلا تنتهكوها وسكت عن أشياء رحمة لكم من غير نسيان فلا تبحثوا عنها. So there is hadith in رواه الدارقطني وغيره. So now we're coming to the stage of the book where some of the hadith, there's weaknesses in them, but inshallah we take benefit from them. Okay? There is some weakness in some of these narrations, but we take the benefit. So why is the Prophet saying here that indeed, verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or Allah Azza wa Jalla has obligated the obligations, farada fara'id. فَلَا تُضَيُّعُهَا. So do not fall short in them, do not miss them, do not, skip the obligations. So this hadith is talking about 3 or 4 sections of things. The first one is the obligations. Okay? And how we can't miss the obligations, we can't overlook the obligations. Okay? And this is mafhum, this is understood, doesn't need explanation. Okay? وَحَدَّ حُدُودًا فَلَا تَعْتَدُوهَا. This is the second section. What is al-hudud here? What is meant by al-hudud? That which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has permitted. Okay? Al-hudud is that which, the limits of Allah. What does that mean, the limits of Allah? Meaning that whatever is within the limits is that what? That is what? That is permissible. Right? It's permissible. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set certain limits. فَلَا تَعْتَدُوهَا. مَمَنَا اِعْتِدَاء or تعدي, sorry. تعدي or تعدي الحدود is to transgress, is to overstep the boundaries, to go past the had, to go past the limit. So whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made permissible, stay within that, do not transgress and go outside of that. Then the Prophet ﷺ mentions what? Al-Muharramat. What does he say? He says, وَحَرَّمَ أَشْيَاءَ فَلَا تَنْتَهِكُوهَا. And he has made, or he has forbidden certain things, so do not fall into them. Khair. Not only do not fall into them, do not go close to them. And we mentioned this again in a previous lesson about, the example, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا, do not go near zina, and how anything that leads to haram is haram itself. Khair. So these are the muharramat. Do not go near the muharramat. And the fourth part, or the fourth section of the hadith is what? Al-maskutu anhu. That which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the deen, the sharia has remained silent upon. Right? And different riwayat mention different things. Like for example, this part, rahmatan lakum, doesn't seem to be completely authentic, but ala kulli hal wa sakata an ashya, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has remained silent on certain matters, min ghayri nisyanin, not because He's forgotten it, not out of forgetfulness, فَلَا تَبْحَثُوا عَنْهَا. So do not delve into these matters. So what does this mean? There are certain things that the deen has not delved into. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not revealed in the Quran, nor is it mentioned in the Sunnah. Right? For example, there are certain matters of the unseen that we are told to believe in, but there's no detail in them. Or certain things of the unseen where there is detail, but then other questions may arise. We don't look into those. If the deen has not mentioned it, and the ulama of the sunnah, they have not gone into those matters, then we refrain from it. We keep silent, just how the deen has kept silent on the matter. Right? And an example of this is, for example, qadr, divine decree. This is something that our limited minds, we can't understand. So the sharia has not gone into detail about qadr. And the ulama, generally, they don't speak in detail of qadr. So what do? We don't ask too many questions about it, because we can't understand it. The reality is, brothers, right? We don't even understand this world. The life of this world, we've not understood it. Scientists and atheists nowadays, they think we've made so many advancements, which we have, but we're still so limited in our knowledge of how the world works. Yeah. So it's important that we understand that, because then when it comes to matters of the unseen, matters of the other world, the next life, how are we supposed to understand those completely? And an example of this is what? An example of this is when it comes to things like Jannah, right? How is Jannah going to be? We all try to imagine it, right? We've all had dreams of Jannah. We all try to imagine how Jannah, everyone's got their own version of Jannah, right? There may be some similarities, that we can imagine rivers and, grass, fields, and maybe a nice blue sky, right? And the hurs. Again, even the hurs, everyone's got their own version, right? According to what you like. So, these are things that we don't delve into them. How exactly Allah says in the Quran, Rumman was zaytun in Jannah, like, how will this look? Have any of the ulama gone into describing it? No. Because we don't know. Khair. Another thing that can fall under this is, and this is very important, because a lot of people, I've realized more recently, is, subhanAllah, a lot of people are falling into this when it comes to waswasa, religious OCD. We can call it religious OCD, waswasa from shaitan. That when it comes to impurities, when it comes to cleanliness, wudu, have I done this properly? Don't inspect too much. Don't inspect too much. Right? Obviously, you do your due diligence, but it's not for you to get a microscope and check on your elbow, is it completely covered in water? The narration mentioned what? When you do ghusl, every hair on your body should be wet. When you do ghusl. And does that mean you have to get a microscope and look at every single hair on your body? No, of course not. Meaning what? It's a general statement that wash your whole body. If you accidentally miss something, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not a wrathful and vengeful God, right? He's not looking to just punish anyone. You slipped up, khalas, I'm going to punish you. No, if you make a genuine mistake, it will be overlooked, inshallah. Now that doesn't mean, there's two extremes. People who go into the extreme and they fall into OCD, or they fall into waswasa, right? And they do wudu 20 times, it takes them half an hour to do wudu, 1 hour to do ghusl. And some people, subhanAllah, believe it or not, this is no joke, no exaggeration. Some people, they spend 2, 3, 4 hours doing just shower. Not from janaba, not anything like that. Just they use the toilet. So after they use the toilet, they have to do ghusl, because they feel like they're not clean, and they spend 3 hours, 4 hours in the bath, in the shower, just sitting underwater. Yeah, subhanAllah. So one brother was telling me recently, he has a family member visiting, staying in the house, and that family member, his aunt, she has OCD, so she spends 2-3 hours showering. She washes her clothes every day. Everything has to be washed straight away. So the washing machine's been on non-stop. There's so much water being used. They had to call Thames Water and say, look, we've got someone with OCD. Can you give us a concession on our bill this month? And they said yes, right? Because they know that this is something that it can have this kind of effect. So these are not exaggerations. And this can come under this. That the deen has remained silent on certain matters, or it's not delved into too much detail about certain matters, so you don't delve into it either. And by the way, anyone who does have OCD or waswasa and things like this, nip it in the bud. Don't let it get worse. Because it always starts with something small. And we all have it to an extent. I was speaking to one of my relatives, a doctor, and he was saying everybody, one way or another, has OCD. Right? One thing for me that is clean may be dirty for another person. One thing that I'm uncomfortable with, you may be comfortable with. Right? Like some people, they can go to work all day, they can sit on the train and touch the various objects on the train, and then they go out to eat with the brothers and they don't wash their hands before they eat. This is fine for some people. And other people, it's like, Akhi, I've been at work all day, I need to wash my hands. I'm not going to eat unless I wash my hands. Right? This is a preference. These are normal things. Right? For one person is okay, the other person. But what's OCD? OCD is when you become obsessive over it. It starts affecting your life. Right? It's taking you 2, 3, 4, 5 times as long to do wudu as it used to before, or as the average person. This is something you need to nip that in the bud, because it'll only get worse. These people who are showering for 5 hours, 4 hours, they didn't just wake up one day and just think, I'm going to take 4 hours in the shower. No, it started off with, is that pen clean? Let me just wipe it. Every time then it starts with wudu. I did wash my elbow, let me just wash it again. The next time they do wudu, let me just wash the elbow again. Then it becomes obsessive, both elbows. Then it's my ears and my ankles and everything. Do you see? It builds up. So it's important we nip it in the bud, inshallah. Khair. Regarding as-sukut, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has remained silent on certain matters, what does it mean? This is a bit more of a technical thing, inshallah, but we'll take it. Does it mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not spoken or is unaware of it? No. It means that He has remained silent on the ruling of a matter, right? Or of clarifying a matter to us. Okay? Not that He cannot speak about this matter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do as He wishes. Right? So what is the stance of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah? We say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He speaks when He wants and He remains silent when He wants. So we affirm this attribute of Allah, that He remains silent when He wants and He speaks when He wants. Right? Okay, we go to the next hadith, inshallah. Hadith al-Hadi wal-Thalathun, hadith number 31. عن أبي العباس سهل بن سعد الساعدي رضي الله عنه قال جاء رجل إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال, a man came to the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم and said, يا رسول الله دلني على عمل إذا أنا عملته أحبني الله وأحبني الناس. That tell me or direct me to an action that if I was to do it, Allah will love me and the people will love me. Right? فقال, so the Prophet ﷺ said, ازهد في الدنيا يحبك الله, يحبك الله. That do zuhud in the dunya, or of the dunya, and Allah will love you. What does this mean? That leave off the dunya, give up the dunya. Right? I will explain what this means. Does it mean completely? لا, we'll explain inshallah. وازهد فيما عند الناس يحبك الناس. And do zuhud of that which the people have, and the people will love you. Okay, what does this mean? الزهد في الدنيا شرعا. What is الزهد? Ibn Taymiyyah رحمه الله mentions الزهد ترك ما لا ينفع في الآخرة. You leave that which does not. So zuhud of the dunya is not to leave off the dunya completely. It's to leave off that which will not benefit you in the akhirah. A question for you brothers. Does money come under this? Does money come under this? Yeah? So leave money. We don't need money because it won't benefit. Can you go to Jannah and pay your way in? Right. So what would money come under? It will come under, it will benefit you, right? It's a need. It will benefit you. If you have wealth, you can focus on your ibadah. If you're struggling every day, your ibadah will be affected. Right? But you, like Ibn Taymiyyah also said, that treat money like al-khala, right? Like the bathroom. Money is like the bathroom. You go to it when you need it. Do you ever chill in the bathroom? No. It's on a side point, it's a funny thing. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't laugh at this, but someone telling me once, Allah Mustaan, this is the state of men nowadays, yeah? A brother, he was married, and his wife, his mum used to verbally abuse his wife. And then the brother, her husband, when the mum was abusing his wife, where was he? He used to lock himself in the toilet because he's scared of his mum. Yeah, subhanAllah. So maybe this doesn't apply to the brother because obviously he clearly chills in the bathroom quite a lot. But for the general people, keep money like the bathroom. You use it accordingly to your needs, or according to your needs. Right? So leave that which does not benefit you in the akhirah. That is zuhd dunya, or zuhd fi dunya. And under this comes what? 4 matters, 4 things. Al-muharramat, sins. Do sins benefit in the akhirah? La. So you will leave sins. Al-makruhat, disliked things. Will they benefit in the akhirah? No. The third thing is al-mushtabihat. Doubtful matters. Again, doubtful matters, we spoke about this in the hadith of Nu'man ibn Bashir. Inna al-halal wa bayyin wa inna al-harama bayyin. About doubtful matters. It's best to what? Best to leave them. And the fourth thing is what? Fudulul mubahat. And this is the highest level. This is when you've attained true zuhud. That you leave off permissible things that are of no benefit to you. You leave off permissible things that are of no benefit to you. So even the permissible things, this is a high level, to leave off permissible things. Because sometimes, generally us, we fall into muharramat, forget about permissible matters, right? But to leave off permissible, for example, sleeping, if someone can reduce the amount they sleep, it's permissible for you to sleep 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, right? Obviously, we're stretching it more, 9, 10, 11 hours a day, that's too much, right? But 7, 8 hours you sleep, that's fine. But someone out of zuhud, they leave off sleep. Why? So they can spend more time in ibadah and things like that. This is zuhud. This is a high level of zuhud. Okay? This is the thing, people misunderstand zuhud. They think it's, I hate money. I'm a zahid, I hate money. Or I'm going to wear ripped clothes. MashaAllah, look, I don't care about the dunya. Yeah, akhi, put some decent clothes on. I'm not going to iron my clothes. Why? Iron, akhi, that's extra. I don't need it. Akhi, you look like a tramp. Come on, bro. There are non-Muslims around. What kind of da'wah is this? Yeah? Do you think any non-Muslim is going to look at you and think, oh, I need to become a Muslim? Look how creased his thawb is. So there's a level of decency, right? But what is zuhud? Zuhud is, you have money, but it has not entered your heart. You spend it even. Imam Malik here, subhanAllah, I forgot who now, one of the ulama, he mentioned, my biggest regret in my life was that I once went to the dars of Imam Malik, and I left his dars, and I said, I won't study under Malik. Why? Because I saw how extravagant his life was. Imam Malik has said that he would not wear the same item of clothing twice. Right? So he was well off, and he would show this. Not show it as in show it off, but he wore nice clothes. The Sahabi that came to the Prophet ﷺ, right? And he said, what? That I like to wear nice things. Is it permissible for me to wear nice things? Right? Is that showing off? The Prophet ﷺ said what? Inna Allah jamilun yuhibbul jamal. Allah is beautiful, He loves beauty. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with nice clothes, He blessed you with both. Yeah, you wear decent clothes. We're not saying to go extravagant and buy a £10,000, I don't know, £10,000 watch or a £20,000 watch, right? But if you're a millionaire, you shouldn't be rocking a Casio for like the £5 eBay Casios, subhanAllah. But if that's what you like, that's what you like. But you shouldn't be wearing ripped clothes and things like this. You want to live a simple life, that's fine. That's zuhud. That you have money, but you live a simple life. I remember my brother was telling me, my older brother, years ago, he was in uni, and he went to SOAS. And there's a lot of Arabs that go there, right? And he had a lot of rich Arab friends. And some of them, you never know that they're rich. They're driving like Toyota Yaris's, but the dad's like a multi-millionaire. Right? He wears just normal clothing. Why? Because he says, "Khalas, akhi, this car gets me from A to B. It's a nice little nifty little car." Yeah? This is zuhud. Right? This is zuhud. Right? Okay, so these are the matters that the Prophet mentions. Then he says, "Wazhad fima inda nas yuhibbuka nas." That leave off that which the people have, and the people will love you. What is an element of this? An element of this is not getting involved in people's arguments and fights and chipping in and he's wrong, and because when you do that, the person you side with will love you, and the person you didn't side with will dislike you. You want the people to like you? Okay, don't get involved, or be neutral. Be neutral. Right? And we know one of the times when it's permissible to lie is what? When two Muslims are fighting against each other, or they have an argument against each other. So you're allowed to say little white lies to bring them back together. Right? And for example, imagine Brother Qais, Brother Ilyas, they had a falling out. Right? Now I come to Brother Ilyas and I say, Qais the other day, he was saying, subhanAllah, you're such a good brother and he misses spending time with you. Right? And no doubt, I'm sure one day he felt that way. Right? So I'm not completely lying, but I'm saying, or Qais is speaking good of another Ilyas. So I go to this Ilyas and I say, Qais the other day said, Ilyas, bro, he's such a good brother, this and that. You see, so you just little white lies, inshallah. I go to Qais, I say something similar. And you bring the brothers back together, inshallah. And of course, another one is what? What's another time it's allowed to lie? No. Life in danger, or darura, or in jihad, or with the spouse. Now, don't misunderstand this, brothers. This doesn't mean you can just lie free to lie to your wife. Do you have a second wife? No, but you've got a second. Yeah, it's not permissible. You can't just lie like that. But lying in this sense is what? To avoid hurting your feelings. She cooked something. It tastes like something came out the bin or something. Yeah, you don't say, "Astaghfirullah, what is this? Disgusting." You just chuck it. And you'd be surprised. Many brothers, they think, who would do this? You'd be surprised, akhi. There are brothers who treat their wives like this. SubhanAllah, Allah musta'an. Anyway, khair, inshallah. So this is Hadith 31. Adhan's in what? 7 minutes. Okay, let's get through Hadith number 32. Hadith number 32, very short, inshallah. We'll keep it short. عن أبي سعيد السعد بن مالك بن سنان الخضري رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا ضرر ولا ضرار. And this hadith is narrated in multiple places. Again, like we mentioned, the authenticity of some of these narrations is questionable, but inshallah, this is a very well-known hadith anyway, and there is a principle from this. There is a principle from this. So this is often translated as well. There is no harm and there is no reciprocating harm, right? Or something along those lines. That there is no causing harm and there is no, reciprocating it, right? This hadith, in reality, is talking about two matters. Okay? And this is the beauty of the Sharia. This is the beauty of the Sharia. The first matter is talking about ad-dararu qabla wuqu'ihi. It's talking about harm before it's occurred. That the deen, it calls us to prevent harm. Okay? So the deen calls for prevention. And then the second part is also mentioned in the hadith, ad-dararu ba'da wuqu'ihi. The harm after it's occurred, what do we do? So before it's occurred, what do? We prevent it. We find ways to avoid it. Right? And if a harm does occur, what do? We try to find ways to remove that harm. Right? This is the difference between Islam and the West. The West only does the second part. The West, it puts itself into situations. For example, smoking. What do they say on cigarette packets? Smoking kills, right? Yet they sell it. And it costs the NHS billions of pounds. Why do they not ban it? Because it's also making them billions of pounds. So they have a product, because it's benefiting them, they'll allow it to harm the people. And then they'll try to find solutions to remove the harm later. Right? Cancer treatment and things like this. But the deen, it calls to what? It calls to prevention first. And this is why the hudud in the Sharia, the punishments, like stoning the zani, cutting off the hands of the thief, these, they may seem harsh, but what is the purpose behind them? Is it that the Sharia loves to harm people? Is it that we love blood and yes, if it's Friday, let's go see our arm chopping? Right? What is this for? And even the Sharia, when it comes to hudud, certain nations, what do? They'll call people and they'll come, say, come watch it. We're going to chop off the hand of this thief. Why? Is it because, I've got nothing to do, let's go get some entertainment? No. It's to what? It's to prevent it. Now look at what happens when you steal. Now, when the people witness that, do you think majority of the people are going to steal ever? No. So the deen, it looks to prevent these things. It looks to prevent them first and foremost. And naturally, things will occur. You can't prevent everything. So the deen also comes with solutions for when the harm comes, when the harm occurs. Okay? So, and there's this is a famous principle in Islam, okay? That we ad-dararu yuzal. For example, the very famous maxim, al-qawad al-fiqhiyya, that the harm is removed. Okay? That we find ways to remove harm. And this is from the conciseness of the Prophet ﷺ. From the Jawami al-Kalim of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, from his concise speech is what? This hadith. Look, it's just literally about 3 words, or 3 or 4 words. La darara wa la dirar. But then so much can be said. And obviously this is because we're giving brief explanations of these narrations. Yeah? And so much more can be said. Yeah, bear in mind, obviously, as we come to the end of this course, inshallah, another week or 2 and we'll be complete, inshallah. Bear in mind that you've not completed this text. You've completed reading through it, and we're given brief explanation. Right? That doesn't mean that if you ever see another course on 40 hadith, no, akhi, I've done it. No, go attend it. Benefit from it. Even if it's another brief read through. That teacher may say something that another teacher didn't say. You can benefit. And this is from the actions of the student of knowledge, that he revises the text. He goes over it. You don't just go through a text once. The first time you go through it, it's like a test. It's like a trial run. It's a practice. Second time, you've understood a bit more. Third, fourth, fifth, you go through a text several times. I remember there's something we used to do with one of our teachers. You would go through a text. I think I went through that 6, 7 times. Then you go study with other mashayikh, you go through another 2, 3 times, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. Okay? This is the hadith, la darara wala dirar. Okay, we'll pause for adhan, inshallah. And then the next hadith is very short as well. After adhan, very quickly, we'll take the final this hadith number 33, and then we'll end it for this week, inshallah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
Just very quickly إن شاء الله a couple of minutes. الحديث الثالث والثلاثون عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: لو يعطى الناس بدعواهم لادعى رجال أموال قوم ودماءهم لكن البينة على المدعي واليمين على من أنكر. The Prophet mentions that if everyone was given what they claimed, then people will start claiming the wealth and the blood of people. لكن البينة على المدعي. However, the proof or the burden of proof is upon the claimant. وَالْيَمِينَ عَلَى مَنْ أَنْكَرَ. And the one who denies it, for him is to, what's the word? What do I say in the translation? الْيَمِين, the qasam, what is it? As in to swear by Allah. What's the word? Oath, to take an oath. No. Right? So, very quickly, this hadith, very basic, inshallah. This is, part of the court system under Sharia, that when somebody makes a claim, the burden of proof is upon them. If somebody makes a claim, Islamically Shar'an, then they have to bring the proof. And this the reason I wanted to take this hadith before Salah is because it goes in line with the previous hadith where we were talking about the hudud, the punishments. That the hudud cannot be established without clear proof. Right? So in the deen, if you make a claim that somebody stole something or somebody owes me money, somebody did this haram, the burden is upon you, the one who's making the claim, to bring clear-cut proof. Right? Otherwise, in the deen, if you do not have clear-cut proof, you should not claim things against people. Right? You should not claim things against people. This is general, obviously. There are specific matters, there are specific cases where there are exceptions. Right? But the deen requires clear-cut proof. For example, for adultery, what's the ruling? What's the proof you need? You need 4 male witnesses. 4 male witnesses. This is clear-cut proof. Can 4 people see something and be wrong? Very unlikely, almost impossible. So this is the principle in the deen. And as for the one who is denying it, then he swears an oath. He swears by Allah that he didn't do it. And then obviously there's more to it. But this is a very basic kind of principle. But the main principle is what? Al-bayyinatu ala al-mudda'i. You find this in fiqh a lot, that the burden of proof is upon the claimant. And this is general in life as well. When you bring a claim, you claim something, you have to bring proof for it. Okay? We'll end it there for this week, inshallah. Hopefully next week we'll start from 34 and we'll conclude in another 2 lessons بإذن الله تعالى. بارك الله فيكم. سبحانك وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.